So as Esther thinks about the property that she and Jerry gathered together, there's 40 acres in Texas, and she thinks about the structures that they built and the beauty of the place. And then she bought another house in the city and sort of moved away from the property. And while it's where the Abraham Hicks Publications is, she doesn't spend a lot of time there. And that felt off to her, because there's a part of her that knows that she can't not be a part of that place. But what she is just now beginning to understand is that long before they even found that place, they were a part of that place. The story that best reflects this, these are deep thoughts. You're with us though. Jerry and Esther used to walk across the property in the hot summer days, and they came across a little meadow. And Jerry said, "Ooh, can you feel this?" And Esther said, "What is this?" And Jerry said, "I think happy people have been here before us." And Esther said, "Cool." So then they bought 3 acres, and then they bought 2 acres, and then they bought 7 acres, and then they bought 6 acres, and then they bought 20 acres. And they cobbled together in what they thought was a sort of indeliberate gathering of property. Little did they realize that source energy was out ahead of it, that 40 acres was already assembled in their vibrational reality, and that they were just witnessing it come together in amazing story after amazing story after amazing story. So now time passed, there's buildings all over the place, the treehouse being the first one. And now Jerry and Esther are sitting in their office, which is at this end of a very long building. And Jerry all of a sudden said to Esther, "You know, I think we're sitting right where that meadow was." And so he actually went to the cabinet, got out the plans, looked to see what the plot of land was, and said, "Esther, this building is sitting right where it was, and this room we are sitting in, our office, is right in the middle of that meadow." And then he said, "Do you mind getting Abraham? I'd like to ask Abraham if that is what happened." And so Esther said, "All right, if you'd rather talk to them than me." No. That happened a lot. So Jerry asked, "Is this the meadow where the happy people had been?" And we said to Jerry, "You're the happy people." So he was sensing what was to come and assigning it to something that already happened. And now Esther is focused upon this property and can't separate herself, not just from Jerry, who was part of it, and Jerry, who is part of it, and Jerry, who's still thinking about it, but all who were thinking about it before. In other words, you can't separate yourself from the generations who came before you, or the generations who lived with you, or the dearly departed who have become non-physical, who are still focused with you. In other words, can you feel the bigness and the wholeness of what we are all together? This is that leverage that we are talking about. In other words, when you find things that are interesting to you to focus upon, but you know the big picture and you understand the blessed worthiness of who you are, and you let yourself be part of that whole with no need to carve out your place for reference or your place for worthiness or your place for attention, but instead you just accept that you are part of this magnificent whole, and you let yourself play whatever part is appealing to you in this moment. Can you feel how the past, present, and future are all happening right now? So when we ask of you to get out ahead of it, we're asking you to first of all know that this cycle always has and always will exist, and to accept that there is so much more out there that has already been worked over. The power is already in it. We're asking you to stop the struggle and stop the striving and stop the trying to prove your worthiness, and accept that you cannot get away from it. And in the moment that you accept that you are worthy, and then you take your exposure to life and you let the pieces that excited you be the things that you focus upon, so that the energy that creates world is flowing through you to the specifics of what you have carved out. Oh, that's when life starts feeling to you like you meant for it to feel, you see. And it doesn't matter whether you're focused upon washing your hands or whether you're focused upon building an empire. It just doesn't matter, because source energy is focused upon all of that. You just have to find, thought by thought, which thoughts feel good to you, and not try so hard to make something happen with your thoughts. And that's the point that you help us talk about, because we say to you, you are deliberate creators, and then we say to you, yes, you are deliberate creators, but more than that, you are allowers. And you say, allowers of what? And we say, allowers of what was set into motion, that you set into motion. And you say, wait a minute, I thought you said I'm the creator of my own reality. And we say, we did say that you're the creator of your own reality, but that you've been creating it for a really long time, and you were creating it when things weren't going so well, and your vibrational reality or vortex has been amassing all the ingredients. And now what you are as a creator of your own reality is a willing participant in witnessing the coming together of a piece of something with a piece of something. We're not ever going to get it done. It's always going to be about what you're allowing to come about now. And can you feel how, if you're in on watching it come about, can you now feel how much fun that was for Esther to sit in that Delta first class lounge, sitting there sort of playing her word game and sort of looking around her and sort of not feeling too inspired about anything, and then feeling an impulse to go somewhere? That's so cool. To want to go somewhere and not know why, but to know that you got to go because it feels so good, and going out that door feels better than sitting in this chair, so you're willing to go with no promise of what's there. We weren't dangling anything. We didn't dangle a carrot. Esther doesn't need any more carrots. She's willing to just follow the impulse, follow the impulse, follow the impulse. And that really is what this conversation has been leading to all day today, is that you're creating at many levels of your being, and life can be pleasurable for you no matter what level of consciousness that you're focused upon. But nothing is going to give you satisfaction anything close to these understandings. Wanting to find the easiest way in. You know how when you prepay your parking, you're out ahead of it? You know how when you make a dinner reservation, you're out ahead of it? You know how when you reserve for a seat in a room like this, you're out ahead of it? So those are physical ways of getting out ahead of it. And you know from life experience that when you get out ahead of it in those ways, it's a more pleasurable experience, isn't it? Rather than trying to talk your way onto an airplane to which you don't have a ticket, or park in a parking place where there isn't a place for you, driving around the parking garage around and around and around and around, and there's no place for you. You've shown yourself that getting out ahead of it does bring some ease to your life experience, but you have not yet discovered the thrill and the power of getting out ahead of something energetically by dreaming it as specifically, and this is the answer to your question finally, by dreaming it as specifically as you can dream it, and still let it take your breath away. Because your tendency, dear hearts, is to make it specific, and then it starts to suck right away. Dreaming it doesn't feel practical enough. It doesn't feel meaty enough. It doesn't feel like it's got enough power in it. So you want to jump into action right now. Jerry had an expression, he used it a lot. It's like getting cooked in the squat. So you've made this big batch of biscuits with the rising yeast, and it has risen into this big ball, and you punch it down, and then you make the little biscuits out of it, and then they're in the process of rising, but you're too impatient, so you just put them in the oven and you cook them in the squat. And that's what you do when you want to jump into action before you've allowed yourself to feel the fullness and the bigness of it. Do you see what we're getting at? We really got out here today, didn't we?
Thank you. That was really, really good.
Satisfying?
Yes, very.
Really good.